Hi, this video is part two of the leather talk with Phil Callis from Ashland and Horween Leather Company. Now, I noticed the first part of this video got some really positive feedback, although the number of views on it was way down. So I don't want to disenfranchise or alienate people that are looking for more of the kind of stuff I've done in the past, but there's some really good in-depth information here if you really want to understand leather, what makes good leather and not so good leather, and different types of leather. So this video here, we get into really great detail about what's the difference between chrome tanned and vegetable tanned leather, and that there is something called Chromexcel that is kind of a blend of those two. It's really in depth about what leather tanning really is and what that process does, and then some of the challenges for some of the tanners. Actually show some of the different, a few of our favorite shoes and a few of Phil's favorite boots, and then at the end he's also going to review a pair of Bostonian corrected grain shoes, and the answer is not really quite as simple as it's made of worse leather so it cracks, but he goes into some of the explanations of why he thinks those shoes may or may not have lasted. Okay, so hopefully you enjoy this, and thank you very much. Hello everybody, it's Robert Powers. 4.5 out of 5. My shoe collection. Some stains there. Got a nice lather. Here is the finished product. I'm not a professional. How tight this is though. A pair of Allen Edmonds torn apart. That to me is a proper mirror shine. So here it goes. And here they are finished up. Okay, so this is episode 2 of Leather Talk here with Phil Callis and Bob Powers. We need to get into a little bit of like some of our favorite, footwear. But I think one of the big burning questions after the first episode I have, because you have such a depth of knowledge working inside the industry, about leather. One of the big burning questions I have is chrome tanned versus vegetable tanned leather. Okay. Right. Now, I may know more than the average person, but obviously less than somebody who works in the industry. So my layman's, outsider's observation, this could be way wrong, is that there's 2 basic methods of turning leather. Let's talk about calf skin, right? Bovine, is that the proper term? Coming from a cow? Right. Right. Into leather is to tan it via vegetable tanning, like you hear oak bark tanned, or the other method is chrome tanning, right, where they use chromium. Right. My understanding is that they are different. My understanding is that it's vegetable tanned is kind of thought of as the better process, but it is much a slower process and therefore much more expensive. But my understanding is that also they create different properties in the leather. So like you've already stated multiple times, you can't say this leather is better. Better for what?
Right, so exactly. That is absolutely the key question, especially when you're talking about chrome versus veg. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the assumptions are right, and it's a weird thing because leather tannages aren't understood, and I think it's okay to not understand them. I think we could probably go through the process here, and then at the end maybe say what you ought to know about chrome and what you ought to know about veg. So. At Horween, we tan, like we mentioned in the last video, there are 2 steps for tanning. So the first step is curing the hide, and we can do that with a chrome process using chrome salts. Mm-hmm. And we can also cure a hide after we've dehaired it with it's in a veg tan process, which is using more tree barks as opposed to chrome salts. And that's the main distinguisher.
Correct me if I'm wrong, it's tannin, right? Is the actual chemical substance tannin, which is found in not just oak bark, but in many different types of vegetation, right?
Yeah, my understanding, and I'm supposed to know more than the average person here, but I don't know. I've never been able to verify this. But a tannin in leather tanning, when we take those tree bark extracts and make them into sort of like a tea, and we cure the leather in that slowly for about a month. Mm-hmm. If you were to take your hand and dip it into that tea, it actually feels like your hand's getting dried out. Similarly to how, like when you drink some wine, it feels like your mouth is sort of being dried out. And that's what a tannin is. It's sort of like pulling moisture out. I'm not actually sure of the mechanism there, but it's that idea of it. You feel like a dryness in your mouth when you drink wine. And the same thing's happening in that tree bark extract. So let me do the best I can to try to explain just the general thing. So you're building, I think of making leather like building a house. The first step is the foundation, where we're curing the hide, and we're tanning it with either that chrome tannage or a vegetable tannage, and there's actually many other tannages. Go ahead.
And I hate to keep interrupting you, but you say curing it. The first thing I thought of, and I'd never thought of it this way before, is beef jerky. Because if you have a slab of meat, you leave it on the counter, it's going to rot in a few days, right?
Right.
It'd be inedible in a few hours. But if you cure it, then you can leave beef jerky, in your pocket or whatever for hours, days. And I mean, it is kind of the same thing, right?
Yeah, very much so. You're not allowing that beef to rot. Exactly. And that's exactly what we're doing in that. Like I said, the analogy of a house, where in the foundation, we're curing the hide so it doesn't rot. And there's a second step where we're re-tanning that leather to put the fats back that we like we mentioned in the last chat. But then after that, we've got drying, and then there's finishing and all sorts of minutia in all those steps. But you're sort of layering all these steps to make you one sheet of leather. And in each of those steps, you can achieve different leather performance characteristics. So the biggest thing that maybe I'll go back a second. So with the tanning for the chrome salts, again, we've removed the hair. We've introduced these chromium. It's called chromium sulfate. These chrome salts into the hide, and what's happening is it's creating a bond between all the fibers in the skin that make it not only a very firm bond, so it doesn't just rip and tear, but it also makes it quite flexible. And chrome tan leathers tend to be much more flexible than the vegetable tan leathers. I can't go into the chemistry of that. I'm not actually certain of what it is, but it's my understanding that the way you're binding the fibers together is much more flexible as opposed to the veg tan. So at Horween, when we vegetable tan leather, we actually cook all of our own tree bark extracts and tree barks themselves. So we get bags of material in, and I can't, honestly, I'm not allowed to talk about the details too much, but we literally cook all these extracts. They look like amber, like hardened rocks that we actually have to heat up really hot, and it takes quite a while for us to make our own special proprietary blend of these tree barks. And then in the tanning process, in the vegetable tanning process, we slowly add more of this tea made of tree bark. We add the concentration slowly, because if you add too much of the tannins immediately, it tends to make a more rippable leather. It's less strong. So that's why it takes us 2 months actually in these pits. Imagine just a massive row of vats, and I can send you a video of this. I have actually took some video on my own of this process, but there's rows of vats. There's about a dozen of these deep pits at the tannery where we actually sort of nail the leather to these long slats and hang the leather into the pits while we tan the leather of that 2-month process. So the biggest things that people should know between those two different tannages, those are the base tannages, not retannages, because I can go off a tangent there, but I'll remember this. So anyways, the two biggest things to think about with the chrome tanning versus vegetable tanning is chrome tanning is resistant to heat. If you heat it up, say you're a shoemaker and you want to heat the leather around a last, if you're steam heating it so it forms around that mold, you can't really do that with veg because the leather tends to crack. I don't quote me on this temperature, but I believe it's around 130 degrees Fahrenheit where vegetable tan leathers tend to crack. Where on chrome tanning you can get up to 210, 230 or something like that. Again, I'm not the chemist of the tannery, but I was just looking into some of the stuff last week, and there's quite a difference of heat that each of those leathers can take.
By the way, just FYI, for example, I know that J.R. Rendenbach is considered the best, by, it seems like everybody,
for soles.
For soles. I know they're all oak bark tan. They even have the 3, oak leaf symbol. And again, I'll edit in here a picture of the Allen Edmonds Shell Cordovan shoes. Not only the Shell Cordovan shoes have the Horween genuine Shell Cordovan stamp on them, but they also have the J.R. Rendenbach stamp on them. But they only make soles. My understanding is they only make oak bark, but they only make soles. I don't think they make uppers at all, right? Any leather for uppers.
That is my understanding as well. And you're right. My from my knowledge, I've actually heard of them before at the tannery that they do an amazing job, and it actually takes them 6 months. And their leather is quite dense, for especially as veg. And what I should mention is, if you think about the substrate of leather, like a hide, I like to think of it like a net of spaghetti. It's like a big, like when you drain out your spaghetti after you boiled it and leave it in the colander too long, it sort of like globs up together, and it's like a really sticky net. What we're doing in the chrome tanning and in the vegetable tanning is we're filling in the spaces between those pieces of spaghetti. Wow. Right? So that's why in 6 months you're filling in the voids with tree bark extracts, or you're filling in the voids with chrome salts. And that's the big difference in these two types of tannages.
I also heard, I think it was from John when I visited Horween, that some places will speed the process up, and the tannages, if that's the right word, will not penetrate all the way into the center of the leather. But you can't really tell that when they initially receive the product, and they don't care. That's another shortcut, my understanding?
Yeah, that's he's probably referring more to like in the retanning process when we start to introduce dyes, because if you don't, certain colors actually don't penetrate the substrate of leather as fast as other colors. So we actually have to leave them in the mill for quite a long time, and it's like baking cookies. If you have less fat, you might not cook it as long, and things like that. So when we want dyes to penetrate quickly, you want to increase the heat and let it sit in there longer. So use hotter water. It's kind of like when you're dyeing Easter eggs, to think about it that way. If you leave it in the cup longer, it's going to be a darker color.
It's very interesting. The more we talk about stuff like this, I keep making other connections with other areas of life. If you want to have a good workout, you're going to have to do, longer duration. If you want great steak, you cook it like I've, learned a way to cook steak. I cook my steaks at 275 degrees until the center gets to be like 130, but it's baked, in the oven set at 275, low temperature, long period of time. And, it's amazing. There's, my mentor.
I blast it way hotter than that. I go max heat in the oven. I sear it 2 minutes on each side, and then max heat in the oven for a couple minutes. And that seems to work really well too.
Yeah, but it's just interesting. Different things when you start to see the best methods are often, take a long time,
Yeah.
Like so.
We're doing all things bovine today.
Right.
But I think that's it's also interesting to point out that you can do a combination of these processes. So
now, can you talk about what you generally use, like, in the higher end, like the Allen Edmonds level, when you get a decent quality shoe, that's going to last a long time. Do you know, are they always chrome tanned or combination? Do you know? What kind of leather they're actually using?
A majority, I would venture to guess that a high majority are chrome tanned, and that's because it tends to be faster and less expensive. So therefore, lesser expensive products are able to be made with the chrome tan. But again, in this example, price is deceiving because, like I said, if you're trying to make a very heat resistant shoe or something that needs to endure a lot of flexing, you probably don't want to use veg. So there's a time and place for both of them. And that's why I was about to say that it's really interesting that you can take sort of a combination of these two types of tanges. You can get all of the strength and heat resistant properties of chrome tanning leather, but then retan it with vegetable retannins to give you sort of the best of both worlds. And that's how the tannery in the early 1900s came up with the leather Chromexcel. So they had the chrome tannage, and they introduced the vegetable retannage.
What about the name? Is that name significant? Obviously chrome, chromium, but what's XL?
I think that made it better than chrome, because they imparted the aesthetic qualities of veg tanning. And that's the other thing I want to say is veg tan leathers tend to age better. And for whatever, I'm not actually sure again of the chemistry of the mechanism or the physics of what's happening, but when you introduce moisture and friction to vegetable tan leathers, actually I have a belt here. Like on this belt, it tends to darken quite a bit. Like this belt started off very light, but now it's gotten a bit darker, and you can even see some of the difference just even there.
So are we looking at what's the difference they were looking at? It looks like the one side was lighter. Was one side the back side in the front, or are we looking at one part was exposed to more wear?
So to be really crude about it, this part here that's really dark is probably right where my butt was. So more moisture in the center there tends to make it a little darker.
But it looked different side by side, but it's really a gradual change. Like, in other words, you have to go several feet away to see the. I
don't know if you can tell. Yeah. This is all the same felt.
Yep. In other words, I think at first, when you don't know anything about leather, one color is desirable, right? Like, where did I have them? But when, like, I've got 4 pairs of shoes here that are decent, what I believe to be decent quality leather, and granted, I've put polish on them, Allen Edmonds McAllister's, which I know are full grain aniline leather.
But I like the burnished toe that you got. Isn't that what you did? Or some sort of darkening on the toe? I think that's cool.
But when you see these more natural leathers, like this one, I really didn't do that to. This is a pair of Allen Edmonds, by the way, and they're in my video. These shoes are in the video, Dating Allen Edmonds Shoes. I don't know if you can see that logo or not. The Allen Edmonds
half of it.
Yeah, they recently changed their logo, but this is the 1989 and earlier logo. This pair of shoes was produced in 1988 or earlier.
Oh, and I know
that style of logo. Yeah, they're new old stock I bought about 4 months ago. Basically they were brand new, unworn condition.
Oh, these are pretty beat up. These are also Allen Edmonds.
Nice.
But it looks like it has a similar logo. It's just like kind of scratched and scuffed.
It's hard to.
I don't know if you can see it. It's pretty beat up.
So that's the 1989 to
this one is
2000. Yeah, 89 to 2015 logo.
Okay, yeah. These are probably 2010.
Yeah. Then about 2015 they changed where the Allen and Edmonds are actually in line instead of above and under each other.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah. So the video, based on the logos, I have a video that breaks down. But the point is, there's color variation when you go around. It's better, you can probably see it better on this Polo Ralph Lauren shoe. When you go around the shoe, when you get to this natural leathers, there's dark and light areas. It's not all one color. Maybe I'll cut in a photo or something of these things, but so I guess once I started to see what high quality leather looks like, it's not uniform, because an animal is not uniform. Nothing in nature is uniform one color. The sky is not one color, so I don't know.
You're pretty much that's like a big favor for you to say that to me, because that's a hard concept for people to understand, because I think especially as a brand like, say, Allen Edmonds, for example, if they want to sell a pair of shoes, that catalog pair needs to look exactly like the pair on the shelf, because if it doesn't, you're going to be angry, right? Exactly. So that is the challenge for the tanner, and that is the challenge for the shoemaker, is to have that uniform product every time. And for me personally, and I think I agree with you, is I kind of like the natural variants. I'm actually, the shoes I've got in front of me here, these are actually made out of Horween Dublin leather, and it has a light, or that's actually a pretty good amount of sort of like a paraffin wax layer on the surface. So when you flex these, the color sort of changes a bit. It has like a depth of color, and for me, that's the holy grail. I love a depth of color, and these are pretty wacky with a little orange. I don't know. I didn't love these at first, but now I think they're fun.
Yeah, no, it's cool too.
The most adventurous shoes I have.
You want to show the sole on that, because it looks like a McNeil, but it's not.
This is like the McTavish, but a variant of it.
Yeah, and then it's also got the lug sole there, so that's good for Chicago winters and tromping around in the snow and all that stuff. So
yeah. But you're right. It's hard because I'm literally looking at all these shoes I brought down here, and they all have a particular characteristic that I call a pull-up. So people have heard of many people listening may have heard of an oil tanned leather, and that oil tanned leathers tend to have a pull-up. Chromexcel is a version of, it's not, we don't call it oil tan, we call it Chromexcel, but it is similar to an oil tan leather.
I think I know what you're talking about. This would be interesting for you to explain. Pull-up.
So like these are, I was just wearing these today. These are my Alden Indy boots.
Oh, wow.
Which I don't know if you know the story of these, but they're really funny. It's a really
Oh,
funny.
yes, I've heard.
Like Indiana Jones.
Yep.
So apparently, when Harrison Ford was signed up for Raiders of the Lost Ark, the first Indiana Jones movie, he was a carpenter. And again, this is hearsay. I can't confirm this, but it's my understanding that he showed up on set.
I've seen this story on an Alden website, so I think it's
right.
Yeah.
So he shows up on set. He's the carpenter, and these were originally made as orthotics or for workers. So these are work boots, but I guess Alden was traditionally more of like an orthotics company, and I guess he had some issues with comfort for his feet. So he showed up on set wearing the Indy boots, and they had a costume all for him. He said, "I'm not wearing those boots. I'm gonna wear these Aldens."
Yeah.
And therefore, Alden must have got wind of that, and they rebranded it to the Indy boot. And they're characterized by this. It's like a faux mock toe. It's not a real mock, but
okay.
I think they're really beautiful.
It's a rose stitching without a seam in the leather there.
Yeah, we would call it like a skin stitch. It doesn't have any function other than aesthetic. But what's interesting on again, this is Chromexcel, similar to an oil tan leather. I think it has a really beautiful color, and it also has like a really beautiful. Yeah. So the pull up is when you. It's gonna be hard to do on a video, but when I flex the leather like that, or when I crease it, we're actually displacing. It seems like it's hard to see, but you're actually displacing where the oils were in the skin, and you can actually sort of rub those oils back in to bring the color back to what it was.
Yeah, it doesn't really show up clearly on the video. I think where another instance where people might recognize this is like a brown bomber jacket. Often has that as well, right?
Right. So these are a pair of Rancourt moccasins, but if I can get the light well on the toe. So right now that's what the toe looks like, but if you flex it, it tends to get like a little lighter. I don't know if you can see it.
Yes,
see that line right
there? There's a light stripe down it now.
Yeah, so the oils in the Chromexcel are mobile. So when you flex it like that, it gives that sort of burst of color. We call it the pull-up. And just like you were able to move it away, you can actually sort of smear it back into place. So it's a really cool, we call it a parlor trick. It's a kind of a fun parlor trick to write your name in the leather and then rub it back out, like an Etch-a-Sketch.
Right. Actually, it's funny. There's a guy at the office has a must be that type of leather jacket, bomber jacket. And one of the other guys at the office was kind of being a prick, and he came up with his fingernail and wrote, something not so nice in the back of his jacket. And he was sitting there, trying to rub the, rub
that. Oh
my
God, that's scratching. That's really. So Chromexcel is actually quite prone to scratches, and that would be what I would say is one of its biggest downsides. But interestingly,
like that shoe there that you had though, that's not something you would want to make very shiny, correct?
Oh, I would. Like I don't know. These are dress shoes that I don't put any finish on most of my stuff, but these are dress shoes out of Chromexcel that are pretty shiny.
No, the boat shoes that you just showed the pull up on.
Yeah. Well, I don't polish my stuff very much. These are just been dusty.
Okay.
But yeah, they're pretty. I mean, I've got a pair. I have a really gross pair of these other Oak Street ones. Hold on.
But we also work in very different environments.
Well, yeah, I don't baby my stuff. I like really, really mess it up. So
well,
these
are. You spend your days in a tannery around chemicals. I spend my day in an office.
Right. Yeah, I do not work in an office. This is my office, my basement, I guess. But these are wow. You can see how much I've really worn these out. These are a pair of Oak Street. I forget what they call it. But it's a 4-eyelet moccasin, and I just beat the snot out of them. I just refinished my deck wearing. I wear them. I've moved multiple homes wearing these without socks, and they get really gross. But they're, I like to wear this stuff, and they actually just more and more comfortable the more I beat them up. But these are the soles are not. They're like non-existent. Like they used to have this texture. Yeah. It's really shameful. But actually on the insides of these, These inserts, if you can see them, are the sock liners. I don't know what he calls it. There's a little sock liner on the inside of this thing. I guess you'll have to take my word for it. It's roughly the same color as the outside of the shoe now. Originally started like this.
Oh, wow.
So vegetable tan leather slowly turns from this lighter tan shade, and it will turn into like a deep golden brown that I think is particularly beautiful. So
is there any truth? I read sometime somewhere, I have no idea if this is true, that the linings on a shoe, the inner linings here, the part on the inside that touches your foot, should be vegetable tanned. Is there any truth to the fact that chrome tan leather is not as good to be in contact with your skin?
there is, in the sense that it's a common thing to have a chrome allergy. So oftentimes we have customers requesting chrome-free liners, like you mentioned there. But there's also other Horween customers that make jewelry, like bracelets, and they often want veg tan stuff for that reason, because it sort of itches and discolors your skin a little bit if you have that allergy, which luckily I don't.
Do you know if it's an industry standard? Like, does Allen Edmonds Alden use vegetable tan leather for their linings? Is there any kind of standard with that or common practice that you know of?
It is not a standard, but I assume that they often get comments about that, which is why I would assume that most of them move towards more of the chrome-free lining.
Does chrome-free mean vegetable tanned or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. Like I was trying to hint at it. It's complicated. We could go in a weird pit here, but there's also like old baseballs, like the leather for baseballs used to be an aluminum tannage. There's glutaraldehyde tannages, and there's all sorts of different chemistry that I'm not very familiar with, but
so
there are different materials.
Not just oak bark, vegetable, and chrome. There's other things in between.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. So it's complicated. Wow.
It's complicated, but the common ones are chrome and veg, and I don't think people even know those others exist, and they're probably better off for not knowing, because it's irrelevant. Like I said, it's all about what you like. And so for me, on a wallet, I love the way that a wallet ages, especially because there's a bit of moisture coming through your body, through your clothes, and touching from my wallet, and then a lot of friction. So it's a perfect opportunity to use a veg tan leather if you like the way things age and you like patina. But if you hate that, if you hate those types of things, which is a valid thing to hate, if you want it to look the same forever, it's probably not the right type of leather to use.
I think the patina is so beautiful, especially when you get into the walnut, lighter brown shades, because you immediately, from 20 feet away, if you see a shoe, I'm trying to get more light on this thing. If you see a shoe that has this lighter brown color and has variation in it, right then it's probably not a cheap product, because the cheap products, the only time they seem to have any variation in the color is they'll spray, they'll just make a dark part on the toe and that's it, light and dark. They don't have that variation across the material. Like I said, once you develop an eye, it's like I said in the last video, once you develop an eye for Shell Cordovan, I think it's very easy to spot it, from far away. Once when I got into painting cars, I could be driving down the road and, maybe driving through a parking lot. That car's been in a wreck, the fender. How do you know? Look, I could see the difference in orange peel on the fender. And once you get an eye for it, it'll jump out at you. And like you said, that can be a downside, because
it's a curse. It's a curse.
I've got a buddy who's got a very beautiful 72 Cutlass Supreme, and I had an 86 old Cutlass Supreme, and it got stolen. And I'll tell you, after that car got stolen, my standards dropped, because my car buddies are like, oh, it's got a chip on it. I'm like, nicer than my car, hinting like, so I know what you mean. When you get the nicer stuff, it's like, where do you stop?
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is, and I have many friends that don't necessarily care about leather that know I'm in the leather world and will ask me what I think about their shoes or their bag or whatever. And that's, to me answering that question is besides the point. It's, do you like it? Does it look good to you? Do you enjoy wearing it? Does it make you want to wear it? Like, a lot of the things, I have so many that, like, I just look at it and I want to, like, wear it. And to me, that's the only thing that matters. Because
okay.
Well, because
go ahead, finish.
I mean, like, it's just it's a personal thing, and you can always make things better. But for my taste, it's very much the analogy of like I want raw wood. Like my deck, for example, that I talked about refinishing. I did a clear, like basically no solid finishes, so it's a very like I would call in leather an aniline finish. You can see all the wood grain, you can see all the imperfections, but
Yes.
somebody else might really want the type of decking that is synthetic that you don't have to maintain it all and it looks perfect forever. Those are the types of worlds we're talking about, and I just tend to like the more natural looking stuff.
Well, here's part of the reason I started to learn more about leathers. Like, for example, these Allen Edmonds here, I purchased these a little over 2 years ago, and I've worn these a lot. I've probably got 70, 80 wears on these things. And, you know, the leather looks as good as the week I bought them, you know. I used to buy, for example, before I got into the nicer shoes, the Bostonians. They were corrected grain, you know, they're about probably $89 retail price. I'd get them for 69 bucks. And this one particular style of a wingtip tassel loafer, I bought, I believe, 4 pairs of this exact same model shoe over a period of about 12 years. All 4 pairs cracked right here, you know, where the ball flexes. All 4 pairs cracked. All 4 pairs cracked the exact same spot. You know, so I don't know if this is accurate. Again, like one of the things I was talking about before, I want to learn about this stuff because I don't have enough lifetimes, you know, to enough decades in my life to say, oh, finally, I'm 90 years old and I understand leather. My opinion, I could be wrong on this, is that for shoes, if you are willing, now again, Northeast Ohio, they salt the streets. The salt is really corrosive to everything it touches, including leather. If you're willing to either put boots on when you go in the snow or at least wear over boots so that the salt water does not contact your shoes, okay? If you're willing to do that, and if you're willing to be aware of the fact that full grain leather, especially the lighter colors, anything oily or chemicals that drip on it will absorb into it. It takes more care, but I believe it lasts a lot longer.
100%. Right.
You know, where I guess if you're going to get the corrected grain, which like we talked about in the last one, has some kind of chemical coating on it. I've done tests myself where I've taken vinegar and put a drop on the, you know, shoe to see how fast it absorbs, especially the full grain leather that has not been very well polished and not nourished. Like something will drip on it and it'll soak in, like immediately you'll see a dark spot. So I guess in my view, if you're not going to take care of your stuff and you're not trying to get it to last 10 years or 20 years, buy the corrected grain stuff and keep replacing it, because for the 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 years you have it, you know, it's going to be more maintenance free, I guess. That's my view of the world right
now. your world philosophy. I'm a little concerned. I'm concerned because I think there's a misconception, and I'm trying not to sound rude. I'm trying my best. Yeah. I think there's a misconception that corrected grain is bad. And I don't think... I think you would be surprised. I think I could show you a corrected grain leather that you'd be like, that is really cool.
Well, you know, here's another part of this. I'm comparing corrected grain leather made in India, okay? Mm-hmm. No offense to any country, but, you know, right? Versus full grain leather probably made in the U.S. So I'm guessing if you compared a corrected... Now, Horween does make corrected grain leather?
Yes, they do.
Okay. And I believe that's an inaccuracy from my Horween video, right? When I visited the factory.
Yeah, I rudely called you out on that too. I'm sorry.
No. If it's inaccurate, it's inaccurate. Whether it was me misinterpreting what was told to me, or you know, or just, you know, whatever. But I guess my point here, what I'm learning from you, is if we looked at Horween's corrected grain versus Horween's full grain, you know, they're probably going to be closer together. Or maybe another way to look at it is, I would be willing to bet that Horween's corrected grain is better than the corrected grain made overseas, because you've already told me you've seen Shell Cordovan made overseas by other companies, and you said some of it was pretty terrible, right?
Oh, it's awful. Yeah. So that's the thing, is it's so I'm a big music guy. It's craftsmanship. It's about what materials you're putting into it. It's about your understanding of how to actually apply those finishes. So for me, I think about guitar brands. If you know anything about the guitars, you probably know the names Gibson and Fender, and you probably know them because they know how to make a really nice instrument. Whereas you probably don't know a guy in his garage making them because he's still figuring it out, you know. And maybe this is a terrible analogy, but there's also, you know, guitar factories that are in other countries that make just terrible instruments. And it's because you see that orange peely sort of bad finish, or the pieces aren't actually fitting well together, or it's not set up right. You can make a great corrected grain leather, or you can make a terrible corrected grain leather. It just depends on how much knowledge you have and how much skill you have and how much good machines you have to make it. You could do good either way, and you can make terrible full grain leather. I could make you a terrible.
So that's something new I learned. I guess you don't generally see any high-end, high-quality shoes that are corrected grain, though. Do you?
I think there are a lot of them, and
Really?
they tend to be so. Like, I'm looking at this full grain veg belt. It's very grainy. The grain is raised. I can see the pores. If I look very closely, I can see the detail of how all that grain interacts together. And if I take a corrected grain leather, it tends to look very smooth, and that's not bad. That looks cool. Like, if you want a really smooth looking, sleek shoe, it has like a sheen to it. So they're flatter. They're more of a flat appearance, where this is sort of a raised, grainy, I don't know, wood grainy type of analogy again. So I think I could probably find a corrected grain leather, and I'll send you something that you'll like a lot.
Okay.
I'll send you.
I learned so much every time I talk to you. So yeah.
Good. Well, we're gonna keep doing it, right?
Yeah.
So to come up with some more good questions.
Yeah, and I was going to say, so I brought pulled out. I already pulled a couple of them up. My favorite shoes in my collection. I think I've got 18, 19 shoes right now. So Allen Edmonds, McAllister, wingtip Oxford, because I spend most of my days, in a dress shirt, an office environment or on appointments. And I do have several pairs of galoshes, so I'm really religious about that. And this is the new old stock 1980s, Allen Edmonds quarter brogue, right? You see
Is that what that's called? I would call it like a perforated toe. Oh, I see it.
Yeah,
okay.
So I think the technical term for this would be either a quarter brogue or just it's a cap toe Oxford quarter brogue. This would be considered either a wingtip Oxford or a full brogue. And these, I did a video on these. If you saw the Kilgore French and Stanbury, these shoes were basically this color when I purchased them. And these, I did a video on these. If you saw the Kilgore French and Stanbury, these shoes were basically this color when I purchased them. Okay.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I dyed them with Phoebing's leather dye. These I got at a thrift store for $20. And they're Kilgore French and Stanbury. And I know you can't see it, but inside there, what that gold text says is bench made in England, especially for Kilgore French and Stanbury. Wow. They quit using that logo in 2003. So these shoes are at least 15 years old. And, they got the perimeter nails here, large nails there, large nail in the center, the quarter leather rubber, Goodyear welted, so this is a
Those
bench
look sweet.
Yeah. So these are pretty cool. And then like I said, I changed them to an ox blood color.
What did you put over this over the Phoebings, or what you say you put dye on it?
Yeah.
Would you put a clear coat or anything on top?
The toe caps, yeah. I actually used both clear. I polished them with the sapphire.
That looks great. Wow. Look how smooth.
Actually, I used your stuff. What is that stuff called? I just put it away. Yeah.
The Tanner's blend.
Yeah, the Tanner's blend. I nourished them with that today, but the cap toe has the sapphire mirror gloss, neutral and black.
That looks great. Those look really great on the toes, especially. Yeah. Wow.
So and then here's my other favorite pair right now. I think I showed them earlier. Polo. These shoes they got a gorgeous. Look at this logo in them. I love that logo on the inside. Yeah, it's nice, and it's got the Polo logo. These ones I picked up at a thrift store for $15.
Sheesh.
Like a $300-400 shoe.
Yeah, what a deal.
That's 6 layers of leather in that heel. I counted them.
What do you call that kind of strap? It's not a monk strap, is it?
Yep. Single monk strap with the, medallion on the toe there.
Nice. Yeah. That's pretty sleek.
Yeah, I love this shoe. This is funny because I do feel differently about this shoe, like versus wearing the Allen Edmonds. I don't know. This shoe, I kind of feel like I need to protect it. And I don't know, maybe this sounds really stupid. I feel like if I got in a fight, these would be a good offensive weapon, the Allen Edmonds. Or I'd want to take these off so I don't scuff them. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Oh, my God. Like when Bush got that shoe thrown at him.
kick somebody with a shoe. Stick them real hard. But
Yeah. Well, my style is like you said, is much different. But
yeah.
I dig the dress stuff. I mean, the dressiest thing I have are these. I don't know if they're called McTavish. This is my dressiest thing, and they're like almost clown shoes, but I think they're fun.
Yeah,
but I tend to wear a lot of. So like I said, this Indy boot I wear a lot of. There's a company in Madison, Wisconsin, that sells a specific version of an Alden boot called the Roy boot. They're basically like a plain toe version of the Indy boot, but they're really comfortable. The crepe sole, which is it's kind of fun. They're like a little. I don't know. Have you ever worn a crepe sole?
I don't even know what that is. Is that the bumpy rubber?
Yeah, it's like a squishy, like soft rubber. They're kind of slippy sometimes, though, would be my comment. They're a little slippery, so I even find just like the neoprene cork to be less slippery, but those aren't very sticky at all.
I slipped and fell in these shoes on a marble staircase, and I'm going to a chiropractor because of it.
Oh my god! Well, so I want to give it.
So most of my shoes, as a habit, and because of the wet weather, I put the rubber Goodyear rubber protective half soles on most of my shoes.
Hold on one sec. So if you want to talk about slippery soles, there's an amazing boot.
I know I'm going to get flamed for that.
Why?
Oh, just people on YouTube are. It's like back to being at grade school, man. They're relentless. So
I'm gonna talk negatively about a brand that I love and a boot that I love. I love these are 1,000 Mile boots. I don't know if you've heard of them, by Wolverine. And these are some of the so they made them a long time ago, and they re-released it, I don't know, 10 years ago as a sort of revival heritage brand. So they're really cool. They're actually really comfortable, but the soles, for some reason, these soles are the most slippery soles I've ever worn. You will die wearing these in the winter in Chicago. So
have you had
beautiful and comfortable? No, that's the original heel. These haven't been worn very much.
Okay, interesting.
It is a Vibram.
Oh wow. Okay. So I guess.
But yeah, these have not been worn very much.
And that's a leather sole then.
Yeah. They're so slippery. So they actually stopped doing this, and now they make a more of a commando type of sole.
But by the way, you can add a commando sole onto that.
I know. I literally have like 30 pairs of boots that I love, and I just haven't gotten around to. Well, I have 10 right here, and I have more. I just love all this stuff so much. It's like that's the whole reason I started Ashland, is I just wanted to see how they wore in. Check these out. Are you familiar with Dr. J, Julius Erving?
I mean, as a basketball player, I've heard of him. That's
right.
It.
So they did. Oh, these are a little gross and dirty, but he did like a special collaboration shoe with. So I don't know if you can see Dr. J above my gross dirt there. So he did like a fun. These are Chromexcel Dr. J shoes that they did with Converse. And I think they only did one run of him, but they've got this really cool, like, black, I don't know if you call that a backstay or not, but the burgundy with the black Chromexcel I think is really cool. So these are fun, but I have so many different fun things.
I love talking to people that have more pairs of shoes than I do, because when I say I have 19 pairs and you say you have 30, I'm like, okay, I'm nowhere near having a problem. So
we might be the only married men that can't complain to their wives when they buy shoes. Because they have more than her.
This is what I figured out. When you get over a dozen pairs of shoes, it actually gets easier to buy more, because after a dozen, my wife lost track of how many I had. I'd buy another new pair and she wouldn't notice. So
right.
What happened, I think, it's about a dozen. So there's not one clear-cut answer. I guess that's what I'm figuring out. It is the right. I think I'm seeing more what you're saying in the beginning about it's the right product for the right application, but I'm still trying to figure out, like I said, why do those shoes crack and these shoes don't? That's still what I want.
I'd have to. Do you still have those ones that are cracked, or just launch them?
So here's a Bostonians I was talking about. So you can see the bottom it says Bostonian First Flex, Bostonian Classics. That's what I was talking about. I've bought 4 pairs of these shoes. These are these shoes I only keep around like to take out the garbage and stuff like that, or if it's really bad out.
Those are your garbage takeout shoes? They look
Yes.
beautiful for that.
Well, no, but I mean, they're smushed. But here, if you see, I don't know if it comes through on the camera. If you can
Here,
see,
pull it back a little bit. Let's see.
It's
so hard
cracked.
to tell.
Is it really?
I can't see it.
Can't see right there.
Oh.
I mean, that's cracking. It's very. You can definitely see.
It's cracking on that side too?
Oh yeah, and they all four pairs have done this. You know, and like a lot of the shoes that I see, you know, because of thrifting or whatever, you know, they do.
What's the liner? What's the liner look like on the where that's cracking? Is there anything in there?
There is a liner. It is like a cloth looking. I never noticed that, but the liner looks like cloth. On the outside here, it's torn.
Is it leather on the outside, you think? I can't tell.
Outside leather?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a leather upper.
Yeah.
Genuine leather upper, I think is what it says, which means it's the lowest grade, right?
Well,
these are made in China, leather upper.
Actually, Bob, write this down or remember in the back of our minds. We should talk about what genuine leather means. We should talk about what top grain leather means. We should talk about splits.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of good stuff there too.
Right. Here's this exact same shoe, but a newer model. By the time I bought these, I only would wear them on nice days. Like these, I religiously polished them, shoe trees, over boots, you know. These, I didn't even expose to the nasty weather. And it's hard to tell, but I don't know if you can tell on the video, but that is a crack starting right there.
So the only thing I can do is assume here, but it seems like there's probably a very hard finish layer on there that has been flexed too many times and has flexed its life out. Sort of.
Right.
It's the crack is in the finish actually, or unless you can see through it. Can you see into the?
No, it is definitely not all the way through, and that's exactly what it looks like. It's like something on top of the leather itself cracks.
Yeah.
These newer, and this is again the same shoe, Bostonian Classics. By the time I bought like my third pair, I didn't try them on anymore. I just went to Macy's and I said I want that model shoe, size 12D. They're like, okay. They bring the box out. I'm like, no, bring them up. I'm ready to go. Like without even trying them on. I just looked at them. It's a 12D. Okay, you know. So these particular ones are made in India. The first ones are made in China.
Huh.
So leather upper balance man-made. And they also, it's interesting you mentioned that you can't, there's no way you can see it. The liner up to here is leather. And I never noticed this until you mentioned it. From here forward, the shoe lining is canvas.
Mm-hmm.
And also, just like on the older pair, the lining has a rip in it right where the cracking is.
The lining is ripping where the crack is?
Yes, and my feet are extremely wide. What I used to do, I'm like at 11 and a half wide. I would buy size 12 shoes, and then I just stretch them out.
So what that makes me think, and I'm not a shoe crafter or cobbler or whatever, but that makes me think that they're putting some sort of firm adhesive onto that canvas. And what's happening is because it's so firm on the liner, it's actually not flexing as much as the outside. So when you flex it, it cracks. It's like a difference in firmness. Like if you made a sandwich out of one really soft thing and one really firm thing, eventually that firm thing is just going to crack. You know?
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah.
Especially because they're laminated together, right? And if you keep doing it, it's just going to separate eventually. And if it can't separate, it will crack.
That's interesting. Yeah. Huh. I wonder if it is glued. I'm sticking my hand in the shoe right now.
You should consider sacrificing them and saw them in half and see what it looks like.
Oh yeah, that's a really good.
Be a fun video too.
Wow.
But I would venture to say that they've used some sort of too firm of an adhesive and glued them together.
Combined with the poor quality of corrected grain leather.
If you want to go there, you could go there. I don't think that that's true.
Really?
I don't think that that's the case, right?
Really?
Huh.
No kidding. Wow, man. I don't know if I'm learning. I know I'm learning more, but I don't know if I think I'm, as we do this, I kind of feel like I'm creating more questions than I'm answering.
Well, so it seems like you want to, and I don't think it's a bad thing. It seems like you want to get angry at leather, or like some leathers, which is to sort of stratify like
I want
the
an
quality.
easy answer, I think, is what I'm looking for. And there's
Yeah, it's not like I said, like I could be a real jerk and tell all my friends that their boots are terrible or they're because they are. I mean, they're like, but it doesn't matter what I say. It's like, does it work for like obviously it didn't work for you, so that's bad. But it might be more of a construction issue for the shoes that are breaking
it's
on
not
you.
as simple of an answer. I guess that's what I'm figuring. It's
There
not
are
as simple
bad there are what I would say are bad leathers. Like I've I guess it's still subjective. Like there's a kind of terrible it's not even a shoe store. It's like I live in a Hispanic sort of neighborhood, and there's like these sort of like pawn shop kind of stores.
Mhm.
And they'll just put out little kids' shoes in the window, and it looks like paint. It's like, why did you even make that out of leather at all? You could have just made plastic shoes. And you could, so to me that's bad, but is it really? Because some kid's gonna wear those until he can't fit into them anymore and have a fine time. It's hard to say bad good. You can say like I like to think of the senses. So does it look nice? Does it have a nice luster? Or sometimes I like a dull luster. Does it feel good? Is it waxy? Does it feel nice on my foot when I walk, or is it too stiff? Does it smell like leather? To me, I love the smell of like a really nice piece of cordovan, for example. I should send you a little piece so you can tell. But it's really about the senses,
Wow. Every time I talk with you, I learn a bunch. So this is good.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Well, let's do another one.
Yes, absolutely.
Cool.
Maybe next time we'll get into grades of leather, right? Genuine versus top grain, full grain. Because I've done some of that in some of my videos, but I'd love to hear.
Well, here's a sneak preview. It's all marketing spin. It's not real.
Okay, this should be interesting then.
Yeah. That's a good video. And I should probably take some photos beforehand because you might find them useful for
samples or
Yeah, and like there's a machine that actually it's called the splitting machine, and that's where the term top grain comes from. So if you imagine like a brick, right, and you wanted to thin that brick in half, the top of it has the press mark from whoever made that brick and has their logo in it or whatever. Let's pretend the bottom didn't. That top part with the logo, we would call that the grain. We just call that leather. And then the bottom part's called the split. But people have figured out that if you put top grain, it sounds much better and it's more saleable. So they call that top part top grain, even though it's just regular leather. So you can take a piece of top grain and it could be rejected because it's full of holes and scars and brands in it. It could be a piece of crap. But it's still top grain, It's all spin.
Wow. As is our world, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. I think there's good stuff here today. Maybe we should I've got something I promised somebody else, my kid, that I would do. So
sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's
been a real pleasure again. And I'm sure we'll do more.
Yeah, I learned again quite a bit from you. We'll see where this goes. And I feel like now I'm like, okay, I know there's a gazillion questions I have for you. I need to, kind of compartmentalize them in my brain before we talk next time.
Gotcha. Let's do that.
All right. Thank you so much. It was awesome.
All right. Thanks, Bob.
Okay.